Welcome to Beyond Borders Hub. Today, I'm joined by Amanda Nigon, Executive Director of the Village Agricultural Cooperative. Amanda works to empower families, preserve traditions, and build community through food and sustainable agriculture. I'm excited to dive into her journey and the impact of the village Amanda is connecting with here in Rochester. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you, Pauline, for having me today.
I will dive into knowing your why. What inspired you to begin your journey with the Village Agricultural Cooperative?
Sure. It really started when I met with Kim Sin, and Kim is a member of our local Cambodian community here in Rochester. And he explained to me that there were a number of people who were very skilled at farming, very knowledgeable at farming, but just did not have access to land. And for me, I grew up on a local farm, which is actually now for sale. It's right on the city limits of Rochester. So the city is just expanding and going to take over the land. But for me, I know a lot of people in the local farming network. I think the values of our rural communities and what sustainably we're trying to preserve here in southeastern Minnesota. So Kim and I just really put our heads together and started looking for farmland. And I guess the heart of it is I have a background in mental health, and it's just really important to me that Rochester is my home and I want it to be a healthy community. I want the people that live here to have their needs met because I think we're all stronger when the people that share a community have their needs met. Yeah, that the access to farmland piece just really, I guess is just really important to me. I think if somebody wants to have access to land, then it's something that they should be able to have. And we should all share our planet. We all live on this planet together. What we do impacts one another. And so we have to find ways to share space. And that's really how the village was started.
Was there a particular moment or experience that shaped your vision for building community through food?
Kim and I met in a coffee shop, and he just told me this story of his first rental home here in Rochester. His mom had the ability to grow food, but their landlord would not allow it. And that was just, to me, like a barrier that shouldn't exist, right? There's so many barriers that people can face in their daily lives, but being able to put seeds in the ground and grow food is not a barrier that should exist. And that just really blew me away. And then having gotten to know Kim and others in the Cambodian community, you hear stories of how they struggle with diabetes and other issues that arise from having a poor diet, not having access to vegetables and healthy proteins because you can't afford it. So I think that really inspired me to just think, we need to do something about this. And yeah, everything just has grown from that initial meeting. I've since met other people. Grandma Grace was another woman who I gave her a ride home one day, and she said, "Let me show you my garden." And I was expecting to see this beautiful garden at her home. And what she showed me was sod had been laid over what was her garden because she had the same story as Kim. She had put a garden in her yard, and their landlord came and said, "No, you can't have a garden." And that's, to me, just that we value grass over food is a very distorted way of living, a distorted value to hold when it comes to feeding our people and our community.
That's interesting because I'm from Kenya, and if I had a single family home, that's a big garden for me. I would feed my family and have a surplus to sell.
Yes.
But for here,
sure.
yeah, it's for grass and flowers.
Yeah.
The village is doing a great thing, connecting people and finding that land that where they can go and grow their favorite vegetables. You are doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
How does the village connect families from diverse backgrounds to land and resources? And why is this so important for you here in Rochester?
When we first started, we had 11 acres at a spot that really didn't do very well the first year. We had a lot of flooding and yeah, just didn't have the basic amenities that we needed. But from that first year, we were able to connect with 26 families. And so from those 26 families, the following year, we started moving out to other sites and looking for a more suitable place to grow food. And so really when we connected with the farm that it was already in existence at Rochester Covenant Church, there was already a strong farming community there, primarily a retired Cambodian community. So connecting with them and then connecting with the other people that Kim was in network with and I was in network with, we were able to just grow really very naturally. It's just word of mouth. I think people ask us often, like, how do you connect to people? How do you have over 250 families? And we have about 30 different countries represented in our organization. It's really just been word of mouth. And I think there's a number of other services in Rochester that connect new Americans and people meet one another through those groups. People also have their own cultural groups on Facebook, WhatsApp, and so the word has just spread. We've had to do really no farmer recruitment. We have a waiting list actually every year, and that's where we've grown almost every year because of that waiting list. And now we've started to think bigger, like the bigger farms. But so yeah, so how do we bring people together? I mean, it's just really been, I think, by providing access and just by providing the resources, people just are looking for it. And so they find us. And why is that important? Yeah, I think it just being able to live sustainably is something that everyone should have as an option. Some of our farmers brag that they have 2 or 3 deep freezes at their house and that they grow all of their vegetables for their whole family for the whole year and corn and all of these other things. And that really has a big impact economically because we know the cost of groceries is quite a bit, the second largest cost after housing usually. So being able to save money on food creates an economic impact for their family and then also allows them to put money possibly into other places if they have that. Also creates a health impact. And like you mentioned, mental health earlier when we were just getting to know one another, and I think having a space outdoors to go is really important. I wouldn't do well if I didn't have that option. And so I know that yeah, other people should be able to find a space outdoors to kind of call their own and grow the foods that they need for themselves and their family.
Very important, yes, to just have that connection, We,
Mhm.
we uh, make connections through food. So
Mhm.
that's a great thing that people from all over the world, when they come to settle here, they are able to have that connection.
Right. And
Uh,
the benefit of Oh, I was gonna say just the benefit to your physical health too, being able to move your body and exercise. The gym isn't for everyone, and so yeah, finding a way to stay strong is really important.
right. Yeah. Very important. Yes. What challenges have you faced in expanding land access and how have you overcome them? You mentioned about the waiting lists.
So we've been building farms primarily inside the city over the last 5, 6 years. The town in Haverhill Township was our attempt to have a larger farm that people could really spread out and grow larger scale. The challenge has just been the when the land is owned by someone else, they may not want to do a long-term lease. They may put other restrictions on as far as weed management, areas that they might take issue with. We're still looking, and we're hopefully this year we're going to achieve, but a long-term lease. I think the biggest challenge we've seen is a 5-year lease. Being able to obtain a 5-year lease on a piece of land would really open doors as far as you could bring in fencing, you could plant perennial crops like asparagus, strawberries. You could just do more with the land that would have a bigger impact and reduce loss, reduce labor costs to your farm. But we just really haven't been able to get anything more than a 3-year lease. And then just, yeah, these pieces of land, a lot of the farmers want to farm in or very close to the city, and it's hard to find large pieces of land in or right next to the cities. We have started to look further out again. Some of the people from our community have taken over that farm in Haverhill Township, and we're also now looking again like south of there to build another farm, primarily focusing on the Hmong community because they want more land. So I think it's just you got to put yourself out there and get to know the right people. You've got to get to know farmers. You got to get to be in areas where people who own land are gathering together. And yeah, unfortunately, people are greedy and they don't want to give up their land. So we've been thinking about buying, and we've had some potential investors over the last couple of years, but finding someone who will sell their land is very, very challenging thing to accomplish.
Okay, right. Like the covenant, is that land owned by the church? Do they lease it to you?
Yep, the Rochester Covenant Church, they lease it on a year by year basis. They
Uh-huh.
don't really charge us for it.
Mm-hmm.
They ask for $1 or some vegetables, so we usually drop off some pumpkins in the fall.
Okay.
But yeah, they let us they let us to use the land for free, but they won't allow for more than a 1-year lease because they say, maybe we would put an apartment complex on it someday or some other form of way to generate revenue. It hasn't been that big of a barrier at that site other than just the fencing issue. We've asked to put in a larger scale, more permanent fence, but they've
Mm-hmm.
always told us no. I think the other thing too is the retirement community that lives next door. They don't want anything that the community feels is imposing or uninviting, something like that.
Okay, it's a great place. I love it. When I take my mom there, I
Mhm.
love it. And I also bring my daughter to learn, about gardening and because it's different that we get all the vegetables from the stores, all the groceries. Having a child and you don't have a garden to show them how that food gets to the grocery shops.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that there are gardens around and I can just explain to
Yeah.
her, this is how we grow tomatoes. This is how we grow the kales that we go buy from Walmart, from Ivy and,
Right.
the other stores. So that is nice. I love it.
Back and forth with the idea of, do we focus on a much larger farm or do we continue to have these smaller 3-acre farms in and around the city? People really do value those smaller 3-acre farms because 3 acres is still a large area to grow vegetables. And we have, I think, over 120 families at that one site on 3 acres.
The
So we try to
Covenant
do a mix of both. Sorry?
at the Covenant Church, we have
Right.
120 families. Wow,
Yes.
that's impressive. It doesn't look that big.
Yeah, it's about 3.5 acres. A lot of the families have 2 to 3 plots, 30 by 30-foot plot. So yeah,
Impressive. Yeah, impressive. I like that you also provide water. So that becomes easier for people who are planting their crops there, the availability of the water. That comes through for them.
right. And that's where when we look for land, we go back and forth on smaller farms versus larger farms because it is expensive to bring in the water line access and bring in those amenities. So I think we've just been slowly building our capacity to provide those things. And um, who knows, maybe we'll have like 15 or 20 farms around the city someday. The city of Rochester, their community gardens don't have water.
Hmm.
Well, one of them does, but the other larger ones do not. So that is definitely a barrier I think quite a lot of people face. But I do hear that some of our farmers, still farm at those sites without water, but they just do more of the drought tolerant crops.
Okay.
Saga and tomatoes. Yeah. But the water is definitely, when you're growing vegetables and starting seeds, it's essential to a successful garden.
Right. The village is known for preserving culturally relevant foods and indigenous traditions. How do these efforts impact families?
So I grew up in an Irish household,
Hmm.
and my grandmother was always playing Irish music, and we ate Irish food and had bread and different things. And I just know how important that has been to me. I think in the USA, most of us, unless you're Native American, you're an immigrant. And it's good. It's a privilege to be able to know your roots. It's a privilege to be able to know where you came from and who those people are and why you moved in the first place. And I think, yeah, bring your customs, your traditions, it's important for your mental health, it's important for your identity, and then I think also for your physical health. I love Mexican food, I love chilies and spices, but my body doesn't always love them, and I think that's part of the evolution of things of like what I'm supposed to be eating versus what somebody else, what's good for someone else. If your generations of your family have lived near the equator for centuries, then you probably have foods in that region that are best for you versus trying to eat a standard American diet, a sad diet as they call it. Yeah, I think it's important for our mental health, our physical health, and just maintaining who we are as people and our connections and our ties to, like you said, your daughter's going down and farming with your mother. And that's just special. I think that's what families should be able to do together, carry on
Right.
traditions.
Yeah, you mentioned about the equator, and Kenya is one of those countries that the equator runs through. So I did not know how to freeze food because every time I want kale, I go get the fresh kale from the grocery stores or from an open air market. So one of the things that the village is doing is entrepreneurship, which is part of your key mission.
Hmm.
And you're supporting farmers in developing their own business. Like, I know there's a time when you had a day of the week where farmers can bring their produce
Hmm.
and sell it. Could you take us through that, how it looks like with the agricultural village?
Yeah, we have two farmers markets now. For the past 4 years, we've had a farmers market at the History Center, which is where we have a 3-acre farm. We are moving that market this year. The market is not in a residential neighborhood, and so we are going to be moving it hopefully to Cascade Lake Park, which is next to a large senior living facility. There's a lot of kind of condominium living houses, and then there's also a recreational trail that goes right by the park. So there's a lot of people who are biking, running, whatever. So that particular market, last year, our largest market, we had 21 vendors, and on average we had about 15 vendors every week, people selling. We typically had 8 to 10 produce vendors, but then we had also people selling baked goods, crafts, desserts, knit, gloves and hats and things for winter. And then this past year, we also started another market at the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Park, formerly known as East Park.
Hmm.
It was a slow first year there, partially because it was our first year, but then also because of road construction. The main road coming towards the park was closed from August on, so that kind of hurt us. But yeah, we are really focusing on helping people build their brand as a farmer. So this year, we are going to be offering support, to help people design a logo, get a tablecloth or some sort of other display item that has that logo, help them with pricing and labeling their items. We're also helping people build better business strategies. A number of our partners offer really serious business training. If someone is interested in that, Land Stewardship Project, Minnesota Farmers Market Association, I think even Renewing the Countryside, they all have some sort of business building platform and education and resources that we can connect farmers to. But we're also going to be just supporting farmers with like, how do you have access to Venmo? How do you have access to PayPal? How do you build in financial resources so that you can earn more money? And then beyond those two markets, we've had a number of programs over the years, the last 2 years really, pay farmers for surplus produce, and then that produce goes to our local food shelves. Those programs are kind of fading away with the changes in our federal administration, but there are local funders who are looking to pick up those programs, and also the state of Minnesota is going to be putting a program into their 2027 budget. I don't think it's finalized yet, but that's future plans for that. It's called LFPA, which means Local Food Purchase Agreement. And so that program will help farmers sell excess produce and go and support our food shelves. We like to focus on the smaller food shelves, Plumoja Women, Lifegate Services, Sunborough Ridge Estates, because we know that Channel 1 gets lots and lots of produce. Channel 1 is our largest food shelf, food bank in our area, in our region. Really want to support those smaller food shelves that are kind of more spread out around the city. But yeah, we're happy to connect farmers with all kinds of things. Really, someone came into our office last week who said she wants to do more with agricultural education. And so we're now in conversation with a couple of other people in our network that we know are working on that and passionate about that. And just always looking to help people, if you want to build a business, if you want to create something, then we have a pretty strong network. So we've been able to really tap people into those networks.
Great. That's a great initiative that the Minnesota State to provide the support and the sustainability of the surplus produce. One of the things that the village is known for is sustainability and regenerative agriculture, which is central to your work. How are these practices implemented across the village farms, and what benefits have you observed?
So sustainability, I think, just comes naturally with what the farmers are doing. When you are pulling greens out of your freezer that you grew locally versus consuming greens that traveled 1,500 miles in a semi truck from Arizona or California to your grocery store. There's a sustainability measure there, just in the fact that we're decreasing labor, or decreasing the time that food is in transit, so the need for gas and machinery, but then also increasing the freshness and vitamin and mineral content of that food. And then also we know that because our food is grown small scale, we don't have the chemical load that a lot of the larger farms are going to have. So when kale and other things are produced, on an extremely large scale measure, then it's soil that is more depleted. Typically, more chemicals are involved in the process. It's less likely to be organic, free of pest control or herbicidal residue. And yeah, it's just something that's more readily accessible to people. You can buy a packet of kale seeds and that will grow 50 kale plants. And you can have, for the price it costs to buy one bundle of kale, you can buy a seed packet and have 50 times or more food than you would from buying that at the grocery store. Regenerative agriculture, we've tried to do more cover crop, no-till, but we're working on it. It's an education piece that I think we keep trying to bring to the community. Composting is another thing that we're trying to educate the community on. It becomes difficult for us to manage the large amount of bio waste, corn stalks in particular. We really need people to pitch in and help with breaking things down, cutting things up. And it's hard to manage that with so many people sharing land and resources. But yeah, I think the benefits overall is it's a healthier planet and healthier people is what we're trying to accomplish.
Excellent. And that creating an opportunity for local gardening that creates a measurable impact on the environment, which is, something to be proud of, because we are cutting those links that you mentioned, that if you're buying crops transported from other states, you cut down on the chemical component on the groceries.
Mhm. Yeah.
Integration is a core value for the village. What strategies have been most effective in building trust and collaboration among diverse members?
I think the first thing we did that really helped build trust was it came about because when you start a nonprofit, it can be hard to get funding. And there's typically a lot of funding for research, but not a lot of funding for operating expenses. So one of the first large grants that I went applied for was through the Minnesota Department of Ag. And that grant was to do research on, the grant was called a demonstration grant, but we set it up to do research on culturally specific crops. The idea actually came from a Kenyan man, Moses Momanyi, who came to tour our farm, and he said, wow, they're losing a lot of their crops to flea beetles. Maybe you could find a way to work with them and decrease the amount of crop loss from these beetles. And so that was how the idea started for me. And I wrote the grant to study how to improve, I want to call it Kinsaga, how to improve the saga harvest. But then also for our Latino community, they grow a lot of tomatillos. So we were trying to find the best variety of tomatillos to grow in our climate and in our northern soil biome. And then also we looked at Asian greens varieties. Through getting to know our Cambodian elders, we've learned that there's a lot of things that they would like to grow, but they've been lost. And when you have to be careful with your income, it's a risk to just order seeds from seed company you don't know or a person you don't know, and then hope that you'll get what you're looking for. So for that component, we ordered like 12 different kinds of Asian greens varieties and just allowed them to sample it. So that particular project brought in 12 different farmers. We had Latino, Kenyan, Cameroon, Mexican, and then we had several Asian countries that also participated. Actually, there was 15 farmers over the 2 years. So just a variety of different cultures that all came together to work on this project. And over 2 years, I think they really got to know me and see that, I love a global community. I love to learn. I love to experience. I love new recipes, new foods, new music, all of those things. And so I think that really helped bring people together and opened the door to what we were trying to do as the village, and just really, focus on sustainability and indigenous foods. And then also I think our farmers markets have really helped create a really special community. We have some of our vendors speak very little English, but they still are able to go to a market and vend and interact. And so they're out of their home and they're speaking with people who they would probably never speak with. And they feel, validated, I think, in a way, because when they can sell their wares and their foods and interact with people, it just gives a real value to what they're doing and what they're producing. And then, helps them make new friends. I think our market community has become a really close-knit community, and they really look out for each other. They really help each other, support one another, and are always cheering each other on. Lots of sharing food, sharing produce, sharing childcare, and just really taking care of each other.
Wow, you are creating a collaborative community there. Do
Yeah.
they, when it comes to produce, do they share like how they grow their food, or do they just buy from each other? Do you see that kind of synergy, them coming together and just teaching each other about their produce?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teaching and a lot of sharing that happens. One of the first things I remember learning when I went to Rochester Covenant Church and started interacting with people and plants there, the Cambodian community grows a plant in the Cleome family, which is also grown by the Kenyan community. And the Cambodians pickle it and eat it on the side with rice, whereas the Kenyan community, it's kinsaga, they more boil it and then cook it with other vegetables, tomatoes, onions, spices. So I just thought it was so cool. And then the cultural exchange there of like, oh, we're growing this plant, it looks just like this plant, but this is how we prepare it, this is how we grow it, and vice versa. There's definitely been a lot of that with varieties of melons, all different plants. I think that's been really neat to see. And then, the people they share resources, they share knowledge, and then the sharing of food too. I used to grow my own really large vegetable garden, and I've kind of stopped because if I show up at a farm or a market, it seems like people are just like, here you go. Here's, Walmart bag full of some sort of greens, and then, gosh, the pumpkins and the squash and the melons and all the things. So it's really beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Because I've shifted more to raising a few more chickens on my own farm. And then I'm have maple syrup. So I do like to try to pay them back, but often they just give to me because they have extra and they're like, we don't want it to go to waste. And it's their way of showing appreciation. So yeah.
I'm sure you've met so many people well
I have,
in
yeah,
your.
it's really wonderful. I like to travel, but travel's expensive, and I have kids now, and so it's just wonderful to be right here in Rochester and meeting new people all the time and learning new things.
So you experience different foods just right here in Rochester, and culture and diverse community.
Mhm. One of our farmers last year, they've done it for a few years, but they've grown sorghum or sugarcane, some people call it. And when that comes into the market at the end of the year, yeah, it's really cool to see people's reaction to that. Some people are like, "Oh, I haven't had fresh sorghum in decades." They're so happy and excited, and I experienced it for the first time just 2 years ago. It was like, wow, that's really cool.
When the farmers go to sell their produce in the market, in the farmers market, do they break even? How does it look like in terms of economic perspective?
I don't think it has been a great return on some of those markets, but it has helped them make connections that then outside of the market, they're selling more food. So part of being a vendor at the market is just marketing yourself and marketing your brand. And so maybe you're not making all that money there, but might get you a job to cater someone's birthday dinner or grow pumpkins for a local school, different things that we've had come up. We are working on incentivizing the market, though. We've been working with Mayor Norton and some of the city council members on some grant writing to bring more people to the market through market bucks vouchers. We're hoping to win a grant and then be able to share those vouchers with, especially more low income pockets of our community that would then encourage people to come to the market and pick up some fresh produce. And I think it's also the benefit of our vendors can be very generous. And when they have a surplus of produce, they're definitely inclined to share. I mean, you might spend $5 on vegetables, but actually they'll give you $30 worth of vegetables because they're very generous and they're just very grateful for what they have and willing to share. So yeah, we're looking to improve, the economics of it. We do really encourage farmers to find their own markets. I mean, that's the number one thing to be successful as a produce farmer is you really do have to put yourself out there, and we're doing our best to help people do that. But we're a team of mostly two people, so we're doing what we can.
Being that it's not year-round farming because of the weather, how does that look like when it comes to marketing the produce? Because I imagining like Hy-Vee, they want someone who is able to supply them with produce year-round.
Yeah,
How does that look like when it comes to, targeting the bigger grocery shops? Like
yeah.
when I went to the Pines, I saw that it's like bigger than the Covenant Church.
Mhm.
In terms of what they're growing there, it's of good quality.
Mm.
How do they get their produce to the local businesses?
Yeah. For that particular farm, I think they have started to tap into those grocers up in the Twin Cities, Metro, Minneapolis, St. Paul area. I don't think that grocers necessarily expect a year-round supply. I think it is very much they're an understanding that things are in season coming from all over the world, really. Yeah, making those connections is the challenge, and that's where farmers do really have to put themselves forward. We were invited, we met with the People's Food Co-op, which is a small grocer in Rochester, and they said, please have your farmers apply to sell with us. And we sent it out on email, we sent it out on WhatsApp. We said, farmers, here's an opportunity to sell your food. And unfortunately, nobody signed up. So farmers really do have to find the time to make those connections and make it happen. As much as I like the LFPA program, it kind of created false security. It created a dynamic where farmers were expecting this money to be there for them. And if you're going to succeed in farming, you really can't expect the government to come forward and buy your food every year. You really have to work with local businesses and create a security net that will sustain your farm. And it's just challenging. We're in a lot of different networks talking about that and working on that and trying to build stronger supply chains. We just connected with the Iowa Food Hub, which is in Decorah, Iowa. They're looking to connect with more of our farmers. And then we've also been continuing to reach out to local restaurants just in the hopes that some local chefs will really feel passionate about coming on and joining our farmers.
Wow, that's impressive that we have some local grocery shops wanting to partner with the local farmers.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of the village and its impact on the community?
I'm really excited about the idea of a farmer's market at Cascade Lake. I think that we could really create a really vibrant community event. I used to think that markets were outside of our mission, and I wasn't really very interested in the markets, but now I'm seeing that those markets really connect our vendors to other businesses in Rochester and people in Rochester. And so it just really expands their network economically and what they're able to do with their business. So, yeah, I'm really excited for that. And the idea of a larger farm towards Iota again. And then also, we are working with People of Hope Church, which is where our office is located. They have a 3-acre piece of land, which we are in negotiation to secure a 5-year lease and start another farm here. So, possibly 2 new farms for 2026, which is like, some days I'm like, when are we going to stop building farms? But we just keep expanding. Yeah, I think it's exciting to see that people are really interested and invested and they keep showing up. We also have more local businesses that are seeing what we're doing and coming forward to support us. When we first started, it was hard to get local support, but now we've been around we just finished our 7th growing season. So we're just starting to get more, a better, stronger reputation with local businesses that are then willing to support us. So it's all good things.
Excellent. You mentioned about Iota, so you go beyond the city of Rochester when it comes to finding farms and land for people to have access to farming.
Yeah, our other rural farm is located technically in Byron. So it's in between Rochester and Byron. That Haverhill Township farm was also outside of Rochester city limits. And then looking towards the Yoda Hmong community has a church there. And I think part of my passion is to see rural communities remain healthy. I think there's so much money in larger cities, and they have an ability to use that money and that tax base to create community centers, to have healthy businesses where our smaller communities are left without hospitals, they're left without clinics, they're left without food shelves and other resources to help them. So I think focusing outside of Rochester is definitely really important. I grew up kind of on the outside of the city, so I was immersed in a rural community, but then also I went to school in the city and, lived life in the city too. So I think it's important that we continue to remember all of these people in rural communities and integrate into rural communities. I joke about starting a farm gym, but I really kind of wish that all these people that go to these hardcore workout classes, like, just go volunteer on a farm for a while. They could use your help, and it would benefit both city dwellers and country people mutually. So,
I like the idea of a farm gym.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
fun, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going to be
Yeah.
fun. When people move in to Rochester, how do they get to know the village gardens, or how do people get to know that you exist in the community?
I think word of mouth is the biggest thing that lets people know what we're doing. People come to a community and they typically join a church or some other cultural group. that helps connect them to whatever resources they're looking for. So that's typically how people come to us is they're like, oh, I met this person, he told me about you, or I went to the library and I heard about you. And I think just our reputation, there's a good amount of people that know about us now. Still, we're trying to get our word out there. And then I think our presence on the internet, we have a number of news articles that have been written about us. We have a website. And so when people if you were to Google community garden in Rochester, we would come up. So we have a farmer registration right on our homepage. So people can sign up for a plot right there on our homepage. We do have that short waiting list right now, but typically we're able to find land for about everybody every year, at least these last couple years as we've grown. So, and we're growing again this year. So, yeah. Just find us on our website or get in touch with somebody else who knows us.
Excellent. You are heading in the right direction, reaching the community. Do you have a parting shot as we come to the end of our podcasts?
Thank you for your time and discussing what we do. I appreciate you highlighting our efforts, and I'm just happy to be here. I think, my family values as I get older, I realize are not that different from anyone else's family values, no matter where you've come from. And I think in particular, living a sustainable lifestyle and being able to grow your own food is really important to the health of our people and our planet.
Excellent. I feel like the food connects us to our culture. We get to experience other people's culture. And yeah, you just feel like I'm home when you grow that food and you're able to have access and share some and sell some. That is a great thing that you're doing, from getting the land, from creating a farmer's market, and now selling the produce. We appreciate what the village is doing. Having lived in Rochester, I know you are touching many families in the community, and we do appreciate what all of you are doing, Amanda, as your capacity as executive director and your whole team. You are doing an amazing job bringing the communities together. Thank you for listening to Beyond Borders Hub. If you enjoyed today's conversation with Amanda Nigon, please share this episode, leave us a review, and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's keep building community one story at a time. Thank you, Amanda.